we're back with Carol Moss from Hellmuth & Johnson. Carol like Christmas, Moss like Randy. Carol, why don't you introduce yourself?
Great. Thank you for having me on the show. I am the head of our cannabis industry practice group over at Hellmuth & Johnson. We're in Edina. Been in this field for a few years. You and I just reminiscing. We met, like, what was it, 21?
Yeah, I think it was 21.
Yeah. And how much the industry has changed, how much we've changed.
Right.
You're now a father.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm almost an empty nester. So, it's great. Thank you for having me.
No doubt, yeah. So when we talk about 2021 in Minnesota, we're looking back at a lot of CBD flower brands, some Delta 8 gummy brands, for example, THCP, Delta 10. These products that were not inherently bad, but there were issues with the sourcing and the production and the how they were made.
Correct.
And so it's in our time of knowing each other, Minnesota has tightened up a lot of the rules around what products are available, how they're made, and talk a little bit about what you've seen in the market and how your career has evolved into focusing primarily on cannabis.
Yeah. So how the industry has changed is just amazing. How much this industry just moves so fast. When we first met in 2021, that wasn't very long after the Farm Bill had come out, and that had carved out hemp and hemp derivatives, aka hemp products.
Yeah.
And that was based on the amount of Delta 9 THC. So if you weren't in the industry, you didn't understand that there were different types of THC in the plant.
Right.
And this definition only limited the amount of the Delta 9 THC.
Right.
So when we met, it was shortly after the Farm Bill had come out and then Minnesota came out with their own program. People figured out this industry is so clever and so creative,
right,
and so smart. And so people figured out a way that if they use the different types of THC and just limited the Delta 9, that they could go around it. Some people call it loophole. I just say you're just going around the law.
And the difference in Minnesota versus other states, for example, not all states, but some other states, is we are a total THC state, and that came into effect after we met, is what we're saying.
Yeah, so when we started out, it was just the Delta 9 THC, and then that's when we saw the rise of the Delta 8, Delta 10 vapes and edibles and things like that. The difficulty with what was going on was, yes, it was legal, but it wasn't being regulated. It wasn't being tested. You don't know who's selling it, where it was manufactured.
Right.
And this was a very big problem for schools, for legislators. The state was very concerned about this.
Yeah.
And so that's when we started talking about moving away from the Delta 9 THC to limiting total THC.
Right.
And that became the spark on what became the catalyst of us having our hemp-derived industry.
Yeah. So I would think 2022, that legislative session was when they clamped down on the altnoids, as their industry terminology is.
Yeah. So that was the year where we went from a Delta 9 to all THC limitation. But the other issue that we were facing at the time was CBD edibles were very popular, CBD tinctures. And the state was regulating who and where these products could be manufactured and made. The problem was the state only had jurisdiction over Minnesota businesses. So what we were seeing was a very unfair regulation of the industry where Minnesotans were put at a higher standard. They were being regulated. They were being told to stop. But yet our
friends in Wisconsin
and people it was just coming into the state. And so that was a very significant problem. And so that's when we started to see the major change in 2022 where we switched from THC, and then that's where the edibles, the low-dose edibles came about.
Yeah.
People talk about it sneaking it in. It was not snuck in.
It was not snuck in.
It was not. I mean, it might have gotten past a goalie or two.
Right. Right.
But it was not snuck in.
It was under the guise of helping support local small businesses.
And making a fair, more regulated, field, because that's when testing first started coming about. That was the first time people had to test these products, which is very important for consumers. Right. And so we had these low-dose edibles, and you know, that's what sparked these hemp-derived products that we see today, the beverages and the edibles. Mm-hmm. And a lot of Minnesotans don't understand that Minnesota was the first state to actually regulate and allow these products.
Okay.
And it has sparked a wave across the country.
Yeah.
Everybody was coming to Minnesota and was being like, what? You're doing what? And the great thing is people like these low-dose hemp. They like these beverages.
They love them.
They love them. And even more importantly, the sky didn't fall.
No. There was a time when we were worried. Mm-hmm. And actually, I tell this story often, but since you're sitting here,
yeah.
we were at the Trail Magic Tap Room the fall winter of 22.
Yep.
So we're 5-6 months into this new standard, and I remember our friends were there.
Yep.
And it was like from 6 to 10, and the evening didn't get louder as the night went on.
It got
a little quieter.
And we got to the point where we were just staring at each other, and I was like, oh, I gotta go home.
Sure. And I think for those that were there that night, or for those
yeah.
that experienced things similarly, and the folks that were there have done a lot in the space since.
Yeah.
But we proved in that one night, or Trail Magic and the group involved proved that the sky wasn't going to fall.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I'm like, my mom will not go into a dispensary probably, but she will eat an edible, she will have a drink, she will use these as alcohol replacements.
It comes in the same size as your Diet Coke can.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and people love them.
Yeah.
People love them. And
do you have a favorite?
Well, I do love...
From a flavor standpoint, or...
I do love Moonlight's, their Moonshot.
I do love Moonlight's Moonshot.
I actually use them before I go weightlifting.
Okay. Yes, that's right. The CBG.
It's so awesome when you go, when you work out. I tried THCV, but I found that CBG is...
Okay.
So I like that. I love No Coast. I love Balance.
Yeah.
All sorts of great products that Minnesota has put out, and we have become a leader in the industry across the country.
No doubt.
And it's been awesome.
And so let's dig in a little bit deeper. You started as a paralegal in your profession.
Yep.
How has your career evolved? What steps did you take to get to where you've gotten? Like, when you look back, what were some of those smart moves that you made?
So I started my career as a paralegal, always wanting to be a lawyer. Went to law school, always knew that I wanted to be in the courtroom, always wanted to be in trial, always wanted to be in the deposition. So I'm a litigator, like I fight. Okay. That is my undertone and everything. So I was, joined Hellmuth and Johnson right out of law school. I've been there for 16 years. Okay. Did litigation for about over 10 years and realized I was going to burn out.
Okay.
Because it's very adversarial. It's very contentious. Just started to kind of think about cannabis and really the legal gymnastics you have to do in order to practice in this area. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Did you see the lottery last year?
Welcome to drug policy in America.
Yeah, a lot of gymnastics being done.
Yeah, so I started to get kind of interested in it, met some women who happened to be Laylee and Laura from Blunt Strategies. Yeah. But then the pandemic happened and the quarantine, and it was actually a very huge opportunity for me because everybody did webinars. Everybody went online.
Right.
I just did whatever I could to learn about the industry.
Okay.
I watched webinars on how to train bud tenders. I watched, I talked to people. I read things about commercial leases for cannabis. Like, it was a great opportunity.
Wow. I never knew that. Yeah. Makes sense.
And so then I just happened to be really good timing. Yeah. And got involved, met a lot of people in the local community.
Right. We were hanging out with Steph, Veronica, Sean. There were a lot of folks that at the Stadium Bar and Grill.
Beecher and Anthony. And
yeah.
And then...
You got to look a little harder to find Beecher. He's not always going to be at the Stadium Bar and Grill.
No, Beecher and Alice. But then, I woke up the day after the November 22 election.
Okay.
and saw the news that the DFL got a trifecta.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, we're on.
Right. At
This
that
is
point,
it.
it was green-lit.
Yeah. So
It would have come sooner had the pandemic not happened. There was a chance it would have
Yeah.
passed 2 years prior.
Yeah.
In some ways, we'll never know.
We'll never know, but I just remember waking up that day and being like, it's go time.
Cool.
And-
And you've
Yeah.
been politically motivated for a long time.
Yeah.
You've taught your kids to believe in what they believe in.
Yes.
And cannabis is one of those things that the wrongs need to be righted.
Oh, absolutely. So, things like cannabis, fixing the war on drugs, talking about, what our children, you have a young daughter. My values and morals aren't based on who I vote for. Who I vote for is based on my morals and my values.
Sure.
I have 2 LGBTQ kids.
Yeah.
I rally for them. I make sure that they know who's on their side and who's not on their side.
Sure.
I make sure that they know that who they vote for is going to have a bigger effect than whether or not they get that plastic straw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need to hold people accountable. We need to get people in the position of power.
Right.
So, and we just absolutely just kind of dovetails into all of that mentality and morals and values.
Yeah, I think cannabis can be bipartisan. However, generally speaking, it has leaned more to the left.
Yes.
What did you think of the Cowboy Carter album?
Oh my gosh, thank you for asking this. Okay, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it right from the beginning.
Okay.
I mean, that second half makes me want to, I cannot listen to The Protector because I cry. And if you're a new dad, don't listen to that, you'll cry.
Okay.
But the second half, loved it.
Yeah.
Beyonce finally got
Yeah.
Album of the Year. She was been robbed. Lemonade is, I think, the best album that's been put out in 50 years. She was robbed of that.
Yeah, she was. I like the self-titled one, that one.
Yes.
The fact that it dropped out of nowhere and there was a video for every single song.
That's the way. So as a lawyer, I'm always like, how does Beyonce do this?
With the secrecy up behind
How
it?
does she get people to not, like how? I would not be able to do that. And I think to myself, man, she must have some great non-disclosure agreements.
Right. Well, real G's move in silence like lasagna. That's a Lil Wayne bar.
But I finally got my Cowboy Carter tickets.
Yeah. Oh, to Chicago?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
going to, Stephanie and I are going to.
Stephanie and you are going
yeah.
to, as you should.
We went to Renaissance together. We
Right.
spent big money for big
You did?
pictures.
You were on the floor, right?
She was like 15 feet from me.
I was further up.
My husband, I told him we were going to Cowboy Carter, and he's like, wasn't this a bucket list, that Renaissance? And I'm like, every album is a bucket list.
Triple Crown. What's your husband's name?
Greg.
Triple Crown, Greg. No, that's amazing. I know you're a huge Beyonce fan, and it was cool to see her win the album of the year. I mean, I think she had the best video of all time, a while ago, but I'm glad to see she's getting her recognition.
She is a performer's performer. You could see about how everybody in the industry was proud and happy.
And Blue was at the show.
Blue is like a manager. She's like, Mom, like when Beyonce won Country Album of the Year, and Beyonce was like stunned, and Blue was like, no, get up.
Yeah. Does your daughter take on some Blue Ivy energy as you're a big Beyonce fan?
They are not as big as Beyonce, but it's so funny because I graduated in 95, so I grew up in the 90s. I grew up in grunge.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I hear my daughter like debating with her friend the Smiths versus the Cure.
Oh.
And I'm like,
how fun is that?
I'm like, that is so odd, because I was a huge Cure fan. But then I hear her say, my mom has a vintage Cure t-shirt from when she went to concert.
Is it true?
Yes, it's from 1995.
Hell yeah. I've still got my 06 Chili Peppers bootleg concert tour t-shirt from outside the XL Energy.
Isn't that awesome?
So eventually I'll be able to pass that
I
down.
have one whole drawer in my dresser is all concert t-shirts.
Wow.
I'm back from when like Van Halen t-shirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you.
That one I stole from my sisters.
I mean, I'd love to have you back on for a full episode.
Yeah.
But for folks that want to get in touch what can you offer them right now? Where should they go to check out more information?
Yeah, so you can Google my name. You can find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great area for cannabis because it doesn't get you banned, and
Right.
it met tons of people.
Yeah.
We are working with people in all sorts of different phases. I don't write license. That wasn't my forte.
Right.
I support people and help them through that process, but we do all sorts of stuff. We're a full service law firm. Cannabis businesses are businesses with pizzazz.
Yes.
And so corporate, commercial,
The munis, the leases, these things are complicated.
I would say that the biggest thing that's going to come down and be really difficult for people is zoning.
Yes.
Zoning is, and that is what we've been working on, is zoning, commercial leases, finding all sorts, but compliance, and we are here to help you grow. My goal is to make you succeed.
Hell yeah.
My goal, I understand legal fees suck, lawyers suck,
Mm-hmm.
but trust me, you want me preventing problems rather than trying to dig you out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I can be found anywhere, and we have a booth here at Lucky Leaf.
Yeah. Shout out to Lucky Leaf. That's Carol like Christmas, Moss like Randy. Check her out on LinkedIn. She's a great personality, as you can tell, and she'd love to help you out.
And talk to me about Beyonce, please.
Yes. Say you found her on the Northern Lights podcast. All right, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Ready to kick off your home grow? We've got the perfect hookup for you. MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. They've got everything from fast flowering strains to unique hybrids, all ready for growing in Minnesota. And guess what? Our listeners get an exclusive deal. Use the code NL10 for a 10% discount on your entire order. Don't miss out and get started with the best seeds. Start your growth strong with MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Remember, NL10 for 10% off at MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Grab your seeds today.